Hey, and welcome to this Woman Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco, coming today as we do every single day live from the Question Tequila Studios in downtown Manhattan. We're on every day, Monday to Friday, and don't forget about Saturdays, when if you miss it during the week because you're busy at work or running some errands, you can tune in at 5 p.m. Eastern for the best shots of Liquid Lunch, which are the best interviews we do all week long, and we bring it to you 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. Before we get started with today's Woman Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch, let's take a look at the markets. The Dow is up about 20, but great things are happening in this market. Right now, 70% of the companies in the S&P 500 have reported earnings, and they're up. Most of the companies in the S&P 500 have beat on both earnings and revenue. So that's great news for you. That's great news for America, and great news for your portfolio. While the market's not up huge today, I expect big things in the near future. We're well above that key 29,000 level. We're at 29,300, and I think with any good news when Trump gets back to America, I saw Larry Kudlow today talking about new economic plans we have for the future for a middle-class tax cut. 30,000 is right on the horizon. It's right there, so I think you're in good shape with your portfolio. And on the Bitcoin front, as I mentioned last week in the Monday Morning Quarterback, 8,500 was the new normal. If we stay above 8,500, 10,000 could be right there for us. And we're at 8,700 today, down just a bit. But I think Bitcoin is in a really good place. As I mentioned a couple of weeks back, China continues to loosen their monetary policy. They have lowered the reserve requirements for their banks, so there's a lot more money flowing around. And when people over in China want to get some money out of there, as it stands today, the number one preferred way to get cross-border payments done is in Bitcoin. So I think we're going to see a big boost in Bitcoin to start off 2020. Things are happening all around the world. Of course, yesterday kicked off the impeachment. I was up until 1 o'clock in the morning watching this idiotic, completely idiotic theater production where nothing is happening. There are about 13 amendments that the Democrats try to force through, and it's all kabuki theater to me. We'll be watching, we'll be keeping you up to date on all that throughout today's Liquid Lunch. We'll bring you some live impeachment coverage, and my phone continues to ring right when I go on air. Usually from friends or family who know I'm on air. But,
see, it's funny. My phone was ringing too, but you know why no one heard it? Because when I'm on television, I keep it on silent.
I thought I had the ringer off.
What about that?
There's Frank, okay?
Yeah. There he is.
Hey, Frankie.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Not very much. I mean, your phone certainly is being as vocal as ever, but we're happy to hear from whoever was trying to reach you. But a lot going on, John. Some of the more interesting news that I found today that's breaking is Hawaii Congresswoman and Democratic candidate for president Tulsi Gabbard is suing Hillary Clinton for defamation right here in New York's Southern District over the comments that she made that we played. I think we're the first television show to play them, in which she called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset.
That's right.
Not by name, but by description, and then reiterated that, her spokesman reiterated that by saying, if the Russian doll fits. She's suing for $50 million, and it's a pretty brutal lawsuit, the language in it. I don't know where it's going to go legally, but certainly a very clever strategy.
And might I remind you that Tulsi Gabbard is a woman of color, okay? She's also a decorated military veteran. And the party of supposed diversity, the Democratic Party, we heard all this stuff about the blue wave, how they had the most women in, most freshman congressmen women, most diverse group of congressmen ever. Tulsi Gabbard should be on a pedestal for the Democratic Party. Not that I'm a fan of Tulsi Gabbard's presidential candidacy, but you would think her party would be for her, but you have Hillary Clinton calling her a Russian spy. This is someone who was a member of our military, which is really strange to me. Really strange.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Tulsi Gabbard. I could easily see myself voting for her. I came this close to making a campaign contribution, but I've tried a couple of times to get her as a guest on this show and on a radio show that I produce, and so far she has not yet agreed to do so. So I'm not giving her a campaign contribution until she agrees to one of those interview requests. So those of you out there in Gabbard world, you should keep that in mind.
And she's been on Newsmax before, so I don't know why she would be afraid of Liquid Lunch. We'll give her a fair hearing. We're the only show on television that has a Democrat and a Republican on every single day when we mix it up. Wednesdays are my favorite when we have Johnny Burnett representing the Republican side and David Eisenbach representing the Democratic side. So we got a whopper of a show today. Zen Sams is going to be here a little later on talking about the opening arguments in the Weinstein trial. Christina LaRose is going to be here. She's an actress and a model from Virginia. She's going to give us her insights on what's going on down in Virginia after the very peaceful gun rights and Sanctuary City rally yesterday. And Newsmax favorite, who's on right before us, Brent Winterbull, is going to join us to kick off hour 2 and talk about impeachment and all that other stuff. And the one man who has spent a considerable amount of time photographing what I think the most beautiful first lady of the modern era, Melania Trump. Anton Verglas is going to join us here in hour 2. We'll be talking about Melania Trump and why she doesn't get the kind of coverage that other first ladies have got. So we have a whopper of a Woman Wednesday show today. That's for sure. We'll keep you up to date on all this impeachment stuff, which I think is out of control. Frankie, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this stuff under the cover of dark? Why are they doing this stuff at midnight? I'm up at 1 in the morning watching Adam Schiff, and I want to pull the few hairs I have on my head out because I just don't understand why they're doing this.
Well, that is sort of what I am speaking, frankly, about. So I've said from the beginning, from several months ago when these impeachment proceedings first began, that this was the most boring story in America. And you wouldn't think that for only the third impeachment trial in the history of the Republic, that something that's so rare could be this boring. But it is. I tell you, after watching this for 12 hours or listening to it for 12 hours, the third, fourth, fifth time that Chuck Schumer proposes an amendment to the rules and the vote is exactly the same way, you get the sense that this is pretty boring, which leads me to the most intelligent man in the United States Senate. I used to think it was Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, but I was incorrect. It was, in all candor, someone who I didn't even know who he was until yesterday, and that is a Republican senator from Idaho, Jim Risch. Jim Risch, can we put a sketch up of, now, of course, we don't get to see the cameras of the galleries because the media is not allowed in there, so we have to rely on this courtroom sketch artist, or we have to only rely on the Senate cameras. This is Idaho Republican Senator Jim Risch, and as you can see there, he's sleeping. He was the first senator to fall asleep during the impeachment proceedings. And this is the most intelligent man in the United States Senate, because we had some other senators nod off, like Kirsten Gillibrand and Mitch McConnell, but they jolted themselves awake. As we could tell, Jim Risch, he pretty much just stayed asleep, which is exactly what I'm doing throughout these impeachment proceedings. This is the most boring story in America, and until there is an actual vote on acquittal or conviction, I am not going to be commenting on impeachment at all anymore.
Fantastic.
I'm done.
All right. Well, me, as the host of the show, I'll be keeping you up to speed on only the third impeachment in American history. It's something that we got to cover because we are the news.
No, we don't.
Well, you may think we don't.
I can tell you right now what the vote is going to be, whether the vote is tomorrow.
We all know, Frank, we've been talking about this for months, but there are things happening.
John, there are real problems in this country that are being ignored because of this media obsession with impeachment.
Okay, I hear you, Frank. It's a historical event, and people want to know what's happening. Whether you're bored with it, I'm bored. I was falling asleep watching it too. But people want to know what's happening, and there are, fortunately, trinkets of news that are in there. When you for the people who are watching it and they're not as informed, they're not news junkies like us, when you have Adam Schiff up there repeatedly for hours and hours and hours, and Gerald Nadler up there for hours and hours and hours talking about how they need witnesses and they need information, lest we not forget that the investigation that leads to the articles was brought by the House of Representatives in Congress, which the Democrats controlled. And they had every right in the world to call every witness they wanted. They had every right in the world to subpoena witnesses. They're talking about over and over and over again Why can't we hear from John Bolton? Why can't we hear from Mick Mulvaney? Why can't we hear from McGahn? Well, guess what? For those of you who haven't following this as close as we do, as I do, they could have had those people. They could have had them easily by sending a subpoena. But I don't favor the Washington Post that much. But just to take you in the Wayback Machine, way back in July, when all this stuff was just, starting to break and stuff, the House of Representatives said that they were going to call John Bolton. And they sent a subpoena to his Deputy Kupperman. And do we have that headline, which we should have? There we go. Charles Kupperman, who's a key deputy aide to John Bolton, was subpoenaed by the House. And there it is in the Washington Post, right there, headline in the Washington Post under legal issues, that they withdrew the subpoena. So they subpoenaed the guy. They never subpoenaed John Bolton. They subpoenaed Kupperman, okay? And right here you have on November 6th, House Democrats have withdrawn a subpoena for testimony from Charles Kupperman, a former top national security aide to President Trump. House lawyers seeking to avoid a delay in the hearings asked U.S. District Judge Richard Leon to dismiss a lawsuit Kupperman filed to resolve conflicting orders from Congress and the White House over his participation in the investigation. Let me break that down for you, okay? They were in such a rush because this was a major threat to our national security that they subpoenaed the guy. The guy was confused. The White House was saying this is privileged information, you can't answer the subpoena. The House was saying you must answer. So he went to the federal court system and said, please help me. He went to the third branch of our government, the judicial branch, and said, please help me. I don't know what to do. The president is saying executive privilege. The House is saying you got to come in and speak to me. Tell me what to do. What did the House of Representatives do? They didn't fight for that subpoena. They didn't even subpoena John Bolton because they were in such a rush to get the articles done. They turned over the articles, and that's when they forfeited their rights to start subpoenaing other people because now the Republicans control the Senate. They make the rules there. So when you hear this droning on and on from Nadler and others and Schiff about why they need to hear from other witnesses, they had their chance. They forfeit it, and now it's up to the Republicans, and it looks like every single amendment, all 13 of them, failed yesterday. We'll keep you posted on all that. We'll keep you posted on everything that's going on with the impeachment in our country and around the world. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back right after this, and me and Frankie are going to duke it out a little more over whether or not we should cover impeachment.